guys, thanks for coming in, checking it out, or welcome back, whichever. Another episode, Potato Land. You might have noticed I changed the intro up a little bit. I'm kind of excited about that. You'll notice there's no branding. Just want to, which could seem a little empty, but I want to see if I can get used to it. One major, production decision on this one is I don't want to be throwing too much stuff on the screen at you. Sort of a minimalist at heart anyway, as you can see by the background. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, see if I like it, and you might actually notice I threw the horse back up there on top of the heater if you're a return viewer, which is at the moment none of you, because I only have one subscriber, and that might be the whole main reason. So yeah, I have one subscriber at the moment. Should be exciting. I don't know who it is. It might be me from another channel. And I don't know how to look it up, and I just haven't looked it up yet. It'd be a good idea to have done that, or do it now, or right after the podcast. But either way, I'll be able to say that I built this channel from, well, I won't be able to say from 0 subscribers anymore. YouTube.com/Braden Young. That'll get you here. There's some branding for you. Lots of things to talk about today. Wrote some stuff down and stuff. We could see if I can freeball it. I don't want to cheat by looking away from the camera now. But there's a lot to talk about. Starting with, well, I'm not sure I want to start with it, but why not? Last week I mentioned in what I would claim as some of the fluff I threw in that episode and apologized for. Could maybe talk about it this week, right? And as long as I'm not cheating, we'll start with this topic and see where it goes before we have to go to the notes. A new segment. Oh, speaking of segments, there you go. Perfect. I'm glad I remembered, and it's a different way to start, isn't it? How are you? How is everybody? It's an odd day today. Actually, today is, well, the day you're seeing this is Christmas, but I'm here Christmas Eve, trying not to get too much of my drunk on and trying not to eat too much food. But just because I don't want to fuel bad habits, I like a new thing I'm kind of working on is probably waking up in the morning on time, which is something I haven't picked up even to this day. So I don't want to pretend like I'm successful or anything, just starting off as I speak now. So yeah, so how are you? I hope you're doing okay. We're both here together, so that's something. And I hope your Christmas is all right as well. We'll see how mine goes, because I don't know. We're in the future right now. So, and if you want, we could do a moment of silence. I like both segments. I like going back and forth, but we'll just skip it for today. So in order, along the lines of not jumping too far off topic and not going to the notes, the fluff I mentioned in last episode was a walk in the park. I didn't want to get too much into it on the last episode, and I hate to start off on a little bit of sort of a niggly note. It's sort of the simple term for it is hate, because there's some hate in this story, or hate is a relative term. I don't even like to use it. In fact, I think it's a strong word. I generally don't like to move my emotions too far to one side or the other, being the youngest in the family, and also the most boring. But yes, I mentioned I went on a walk, and that was nice because I had mentioned earlier that it would be a good thing to do to get out there. And who would have known? These parks are compact, full of, yeah, I was listening to the radio, and it was saying what places were open. This is some just, I don't know how you say, mainstream station on the radio, plays all the hits or something. And they were telling us, they had this segment or whatever, this little almost commercial in there, which said all the places that were open at the moment, the California's regulations, and I hate to be so localized, but essentially I said, have a good time and have a good weekend, and it, without sounding facetious, not to use a big term again or overuse it really, I said maybe you can go outside and smell the air, have a walk around, or go to the park. Too much talking about park already, but to get right to it, the parks are chock full of people. That's what I meant to say. And so much so that you see the extremes. You know, I, upon entering the park, stopped on some sort of subconscious level because I had already parked and could see that there was a guy bending over, greeting everybody that was walking in the park with his backside, doing some stretches on a bench. And so I'm not sure how conscious or subconscious it was, but I wanted to check out the park's layout. It was my first time there since they completely overhauled it. And so they had a little map out front there, and I was checking it out just long enough to where when I looked back up, he wasn't doing his stretching position anymore. And of course, as soon as I got to about where he was at, I had to take a hard left because he went back in his position, which is somewhat funny and somewhat not. I made sure I made some scuff marks so he could hear that I was walking off, veering left into the gravel portion as quickly as possible. Not too much hate in there. I was expecting to, fumble about all over myself. So I think that pretty much covers that. And in terms of all this hoopla about what's going on in the news these days, and I hate to talk about what's in the news, but it is, generally speaking, a way to get into conversation with somebody, right? So it's like office or water cooler talk, right? So we can get it out of the way quick, but I think a better format for podcasts and more successful podcasts especially do this, or at least one that I used to watch, will put the current affairs on the back half, which I think is probably smarter. But here we go. We're talking about the news a little bit. Just wanted to go over a little bit of what might be therapeutic for all of us, how we tune into our own emotions. And it is my opinion that it takes about 4 times to figure out what's going on inside yourself when you realize you forget the day of the week. I recently forgot the day of the week again, realized I had done it before, and I had maybe done it even before that, and realized I didn't like the change. I had to start to get used to that change. I was going to be forgetting the days of the week. This is something that might have happened earlier for you guys, and it might not have happened yet. but essentially it started to burn a fire inside me. And by that I mean anger started to crop up. And I just wanted to share that with you guys so we could all be more in tune with what our emotions are. I think when something in the outside world comes at you and forces you to change, which is essentially like you have an expectation and then it doesn't fall, I'm used to knowing the days of the week. It doesn't fall under my expectations, then all of a sudden I'm starting to get frustrated and whatnot. So I noticed that about myself, and I wonder if we all went through it about the same time there early on, because we were certainly getting used to other changes. But this was another one that I noticed crop up, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. It wasn't something I really wanted to talk about in the beginning, but there you have it. Let's go to the notes. Like I said, a lot to talk about today, but not a lot atop my mind yet. I tried a little bit of alcohol, and I even tried a little bit of a cigarette to sort of get me juiced up and going. But my room has to be dead silent, and so before I start recording, so it changes the mood a bit. But the reality is, I'm always up for it. I'm always having a good time. For the most part, except when I'm fumbling around like so. I did a little bit of promoting up front there, but the reason I'm not promoting, just wanted to get it out of the way, or this is more of an update on why I don't like promoting. Oh, we can talk about my face if you want. Actually, let's start off with that. I have a new cut today, which goes way, my beard here goes way underneath my chin, because my natural nervous habit of plucking my chin hair is sort of patterned. You can see it's a little, I go across out of bounds over here, but so I tried to kind of make it all look like one fell swoop there, but I know it looks funky. I just always want you guys to keep up with me trying to get away out of this ingrown hair / nervous habit. Not sure what it is, but there it is. My ugly ass right on the screen for you. I should probably have shaved it all away like I usually do. But just eager to get to podcasting. I am excited about the new intro. I think or the modified, updated intro. I think it's pretty cool. All right, so enough of the faff, they say in England. Enough of that. More, I suppose, more. Did I want to talk about this more? We'll bring it up another time. No, I mean, just to get it out of the way. The reason I'm not promoting as much is I want to have a healthy balance. Suppose this is a perfect segue from what we were just talking about. A healthy balance where I can always say, like, I'm not promoting heavy because I'm fighting with my privacy. It's sort of a balance I'm having where, I can always step back and say, hey, I didn't ask for this, even though. Irony, I'm sure, but this is humans and technology combining, right? Thanks again for checking it out. I hope you like it. I hope you subscribe, or at least engage on some minor level. What else? We talked about having just one subscriber. I tried so many times to get up and going on this one, but so I'm not even sure if I mentioned the subscriber thing. This is going to be the first podcast where I cut the, I'll do some editing if I repeat myself here, because I really don't remember, but it's all one take, you could say, but I like to greet you guys effusively. That's the term. I learned that when I was a kid there. And it's also fun letting you go. I like to, you know, I think it's more natural when you're dealing with animals, which we all are. I think it's more natural to say hello and goodbye naturally. But I want this to be a fun podcast. There's no reason to do it if it isn't fun. So greeting you enthusiastically up off the front there with extra energy or whatever, and then saying goodbye with extra energy. I don't know. I'm trying to get used to it myself. But if I didn't mention that I have a subscriber in all this trying to catch up, and I think I broke the ice when I mentioned the calmness of the room before I get started, that's sort of seems to be the issue. So maybe I'll jam out right before I press record next time or something. But anyway, I have a subscriber on the new channel, and on this new channel, and yeah, I didn't look it up. Don't know who it is yet. And if I said all this before, you won't be hearing me say it again because I edited it out, which would be a landmark moment on this one. But so yeah, so one subscriber means, gosh, I'm losing my train of thought already. Again, swimming in the beginning. When do I catch my flow? It just means I could say that I started my I can't say I started my podcast from 0 subscribers anymore. But there you have it. Trying to be as genuine as possible the whole time through. And you could see all my missteps. I might even not edit this out, and you could just see all the drama. Oh, I know where I was going. Basically, we all, you know, again, it would count as a great segue from what I was just talking about. Humans and technology merging. I'm staring at a piece of equipment that is sort of, gosh, I just had the word and it escaped me. It's mimicking talking to another person. But the reality is, if this one subscriber isn't watching, and I don't think they are, and it might be me on another channel, I don't know, then, or maybe they're not watching enough of and I just don't get, and I haven't just dug that deep in the statistics behind the scenes. But I'm mimicking talking to a normal person. As I mentioned in an earlier episode, you're essentially a human being laying down on a hospital bed, and you don't have all of your senses. So you're in a comatose state. That's who I'm talking to. It's like my dying dog, to put it lightly. I suppose you could be any animal you want. So sort of the vibe, I guess, or the best way to look at things, because if nobody's watching any of this, then I'm grasping for attention as vigorously as possible here, and the whole job can go up in the air. If I do this for, let's say, another 2, 5, 10 years, however long, maybe it's just a few weeks, then you know I was trying my hardest to act my way into attention. But that's the thing, is I really shouldn't feel terrible about it, because we all do it. Everybody wants to stand their ground and hold their own opinions and stuff. And you don't want too much of other people getting in the way, and you don't want to give them too much credit for barging in and intruding on your life and whatnot, shaking things up. So you tend to default to like a non-smile is all I'm getting at there. And as a good example of acting in our everyday lives. So we all do it. I'm here feeling a little bit of remorse or guilt for it, because I'm pretending to have a conversation with maybe somebody in the future, right? I suppose every podcaster does it if they're not live, which is another thing. I could definitely, if too many people request that I go live, then I'll have to switch over. And in that case, it's probably a strong argument that I shouldn't edit any of this podcast out. But kind of getting on a roll here. My opinions and whatnot. Well, I mentioned my opinions and whatnot. I realize the sad part of this shit is that I can't quite jump out of, and having explained all that just now, I can't quite jump out of, I don't feel comfortable jumping out of my first person skin. Because, you know, unless I'm like highly engaging or I have a bunch of friends on and off screen, on or off screen, then I'm just one person with my opinions. And to get too loud and bombastic can seem a little bit, you know, what are you doing, boy? What are you doing, boy? Kind of a thing, kiddo or whatever. So I don't want to, I suppose I don't want to jump too far outside of myself or what is reasonable or whatever. Have we gotten to anything of substance yet? I hope maybe both those last topics combined equals something, one full thing of substance. But yeah, so I say that because I've been trying this out. It's a podcast and you learn something every day. So if I don't grab another person and put them in the same room as me or across, you know what I mean, if I don't Zoom or Skype somebody or whatever. Skype seems to be a dying term, huh? I wonder what happened. Are they charging people? Anyway, you get what I'm saying. And then, without looking at my notes, the first order of business, I believe, is, more like just to pick up from last episode again. I also said something that borderlined a gossip last episode, which I'm a little ashamed of, but you could see where my intentions were if you're really looking. And that is talking about other people in the industry. And I'm not so much talking about too much about people in the industry because my main influence when it comes to living life and stuff / podcasting / comedy is I haven't mentioned yet. And to get it out of the way, I'm happy to say Patrice O'Neal. He's my favorite. I heard some comedian from New York say it recently a couple times, or at least once there. And he was highly complimented when somebody said that he reminds them of him. And he's dead now, so everybody holds him to legendary status. But with relative ease, I suppose. But really, talking about other people in the industry or comparing them is really just comparing their hard work. And I think when I mentioned both of them folk, I was just comparing. It's not that I have to back up anything I say or anything like that. When I say I was just, it sounds like I have to explain something. The reality is you know where I'm coming from. I'd like to explain the theory behind what feels to me hypocritical or against all of my regular norms when I mention two people, compare them, make it sound like one is better than the other, when really that without too much extra dialogue, you can see that I was essentially favoring an underdog in terms of maybe popularity, which is nothing, maybe money, which is nothing when you both have a lot of money. But the reason it goes against all of my against my own personal philosophy is because, I tend to think that, again, like want, or how should I say? I say again from previous episodes. Wandering through life, I don't want to. It might be the smartest thing to not be hypocritical, right? So, like, I'll talk to a stranger. I'll say one thing to one stranger. I'll say the complete opposite to another stranger. Who cares? It'll never come back to me. Blah blah blah. But when you're actually developing your own personality or whatever, you don't want to trip over something that goes against what you might have loudly stated before. And in this case, pretending that any human being at all is better than another. And I mentioned this I'm stoked about talking about it. I'm so psyched about talking about this because I mentioned it in a previous episode and I didn't cover it at all. So we're here now. But essentially I said, don't criticize anyone. Never criticize anybody for anything. And I stand by it because we're all one and the same. It's deep down. We were all babies, newborn babies, or babies in the womb at one point. So I don't tend to criticize people very much, especially publicly. So I wouldn't want it to sound like that, but it's an opportunity to discuss my own personal philosophy, which can kind of sound heady or just whatever. I mean, even a little bit douchey if I'm all over this subject all the time. But so there you have it. Last podcast was a little bit crazy. I went a little bit off the tracks there. And part of that is I could be drunk or not drunk and still have a great time. Or smoke a cigarette or not have a few puffs and still have a great time. And I thought last podcast was wonderful, if you ask me. And I'm trying to keep them great and stuff. And so far, it seems like we've been mostly in the weeds on this one. So I'd like to get to something more fun or uplifting or just some solid entertainment at some point before we wrap it up. More jibber jabber from last podcast, maybe. Or we could talk about Patrice O'Neal. I think he's great. I think he's he says it himself. His bad side is as good as his strong side, or you don't get one without the other. He has said somewhere at one point publicly. So I only know him through the internet, whatever that even means. But so we all have our, our good and our bad and stuff like that. And I don't know, I wouldn't have wanted to talk about that as much. I want to talk about how brilliant he is and how most of my recent development of thought has come from him. And we did a whole segment on one of my first 3 podcasts or so, on my 3rd or 4th podcast, where I talked about my influences and left him out. Look, I'm not going to compare. I mean, my favorite basketball player also has a different skin color or skin tone than I. And my favorite musician also has a different skin tone. So when I talk about people, I try to avoid topics. Oh, perfect. I'm glad we're here. Okay, so I had a friend tell me, past tense, I'm kidding, once that it's not that he's necessarily a past tense friend. Okay, I love everybody equally, and I try to hold myself to that standard. I think, may I have come up with it or not, I think it's a beautiful way of navigating through life. But I had a friend tell me once that it was a quote from, I'm hesitant to say this to the rest of the world, But I was a little shocked that such a smart thing could come from, such a fine, precise, perfect quote could come from the opposite gender. But it's because he didn't tell me the gender before he said it. And so I don't want to not give her credit. She's actually, it seems like she was sitting around writing quotes during her whole life or something, because she's actually quite brilliant. And I don't think I found a single quote of hers that wasn't remarkable in some aspect. So check her out if you want. Just look up her quotes online or whatever. Brilliant. She was the president's wife, a first lady, which is another reason why I shouldn't be shocked or whatever. But Elizabeth Roosevelt. Why they say Rose instead of Roos? She said, she said something along the lines of stupid people. If you looked it up already, because I'm taking so long. Stupid people talk about people, and sort of like normal people talk about events. And then I was hesitant to apologize for all my chair squeaking on this particular podcast / show. And then brilliant or whatever people talk about ideas. That is one hell of a quote. It sort of gets in your mind, and or at least mine, and it buries itself so deep that I feel like ever since then, thanks to my friend, but thanks to him specifically, and he could have been a female, because after him, I was mostly hanging out with a female as an arguably upgrade. Arguably. So, for the longest time, or even longer. So, and I was hanging out with her before as well, on some level. But anyway, so yeah, so why would I drop it on you? I'm not trying to get too deep inside anybody's head, just that it sort of explains why I feel like I can compare two giant people in the business that all have started at the same time, and I'm not getting into BS like racial topics at the same time. Another comic that I should mention or whatever, I mean, these people are people, and then they're comics, right? Unless you're a comedian when you're in your mother's womb, I don't know. But another person I should mention for sure is Dave Chappelle, right? He's another giant in the industry. And I like to, the whole thing about jumping into the industry or getting in, and I've just barely tapped my toenail into the water here, but at this point, and I'm already coming out with loud ass opinions, is because I want to be able to have an opinion in the industry. So I don't like to even criticize musicians or artists or for the most part, even, I'm going to say lesser art for the most part. I don't know. Is music better than any other art? It's up to you, I suppose. I don't like to do it because, they worked harder than me, and I haven't done anything in as far as, mostly nothing. I suppose I have a back catalog, crappy shit, but I haven't, put myself out there publicly on some sort of, how do you say, vulnerable level. So who am I to, start comparing and stuff? So anyway, I think we covered all that. Just a sort of rule of thumb to live by. one day I'll get smarter and I'll be able to just roll phrases like that off my tongue. But so there you go, there you have it, explaining everything. I love them both equally as I love all comedians equally. Enough said, you know. And then, and maybe the last topic before we get out of here, because I don't want to go on too long about things I mentioned in the last podcast, but I'll try and put this in one sentence. Essentially, my basketball court that I'm currently frequenting, due to the current times that we're all experiencing / living in, is 28 minutes away. I have to drive, when there's no traffic, which there isn't usually, half an hour to get to my basketball court. So maybe it's more of a geography thing than it is different, you know, classes or ages or social status or skin tone, everything I mentioned earlier. I'm going to, and I have been, and I always have been, look into a closer court that I could frequent more often. And I have been, yes, randomly driving. I've gotten into my car and gone out there on specific drives for what could be a potential court to play and mingle with the people in. So I've been doing that. It's a constant journey, and it's more difficult because of the times we're in right now. So I hate to, you know, unshake up anything I said controversial that might be controversial from before, because I love to stand by all my opinions and everything I said, and I still do. And I would double down if I would have gotten heat for it, would get heat for it. And there you go. Little mini Kevin Hart for you, if I could say, inside me. May I leave you at this moment, or can we talk about one more thing? Because it's from another podcast. Listen, I hope you guys are doing well and stuff. It's kind of a heady episode. I think that's the right term to use. I'll certainly look it up right after or between now and next week. But I hope you guys are having a good Christmas and stuff. Maybe you stumbled upon this episode in the middle of the year, or hopefully you're watching it by next year or the year after that on Christmas Day. So I really do sincerely wish it upon you, and we'll get into the one topic and then I'll probably have to let it go since we're getting close on time here, right? Don't want to go for too long. I didn't know that this podcast was going to go, I didn't know I was going to get too deep in some of these topics here. Last episode I mentioned, and I left you guys on a cliffhanger when it comes to when I think of something that I can't immediately say. And that's just practice for, you know, in the moment, spur of the moment, publicly speaking. How are you going to, you know, play with this new thought that you can't? It's like being up on stage if you were a stand-up comedian. If you don't, you know, I've probably heard this somewhere too. If I'm being super honest, somebody may or possibly would have said it, and it probably struck a nerve, and here I am talking about it. You know, now that I'm consciously remembering that it's probably happened. Somebody has probably said that. So I'm not the first to say, I don't think, but yeah, there is a level of bravery, but there's also, and you know, being on ice skates, and there's the thrill to it, and it is fun, and I like to do it. But the topic I was going to cover, it's sort of negated now that we're a week later, I realize. But the topic I was going to cover was about going to a show, passing a show from a favorite band of mine, and punk rock from back in the day. And they were all, speaking of heady, they're all like heavy lyrics and and maybe the term is heavy, but they're all heavy lyrics and deep, thought-provoking band, especially for the genre. I shouldn't say especially. Other great bands like Bad Religion and stuff are some of my top punk rock bands as well, maybe Pennywise. But this band was good riddance. I was proud to have sort of found them myself. I wrapped all my loving tentacles around them so that nobody else could necessarily get in, and that they were my true babies at one point. So I had no idea when I was driving around working that they were playing a show at the Roxy, and I couldn't believe it. It was like the next day they were going to play, so I didn't jump on it as hard as I could have and go to the show, maybe scalp tickets or try and find them online at least. But I did look them up online. I looked up the show online a few days later, and to get straight to the point, you want to see, maybe being there would have been different, but I want to see them getting into like some dialogue between songs and stuff and engaging with the audience a little bit more than just your typical musical act. Same thing for bands like some other bands I might love or whatever who don't do this, but you love to see it. So maybe I'm transitioning from, music lover to comedy / podcast lover as I get older here. But essentially, I'm trying to remember the point I was trying to come around to. I'm jaded for not just enjoying the music. I'm jaded for feeling like the show could have been better. I feel like I've run into a lot of people, the part that I didn't want to say here, right? And talked to a lot of people up to this point, and some conversation can be draining on your patience and stuff. So that was what I didn't want to talk about. And there you go. There you have it for now, which just means you can keep it forever, but I'm a week late. Anyway, including doing some traveling, I should say. I also have done a tiny bit, but my share of traveling up to this point where I could say, holy crap, I've seen a bit. And to compare myself to the rest of the world in a super 100% judgmental manner, I know it's sort of a phrase that is thrown around too much these days, but to say it once and not repeat myself, I feel like, there you go. I might have something to say myself. I might be my own person to some extent. Sometime in your early 30s is probably when you start to, figure yourself out, just to get right to it. All right, guys, that's enough. Too much from me, right? Thanks for being here. I can't believe we're wrapping up. I had so much more to talk about. I guess we hit most of the great points. Let's see. We touched upon everything. Going to the notes now. We've touched upon everything except one thing, and we'll just cover it next episode. I'll give you a clue, though. Didn't want to show you because I'm wearing a yellow shirt this week. But we don't have to talk about it anymore. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in or checking it out. I appreciate it. Any engagement? I was thinking about giving you guys my cell phone number. Maybe I'll do that before I have even 2 subscribers. Throw out my cell phone number. You guys can engage with me personally, and that way I don't even have to buy another phone or what have you. Maybe I do that. Maybe I do that and don't tell you. Who knows? But I think it would be fun. All right, so have a great day. It could be any day that you watch this if you want. I hope yours was as good or better than mine. And I'll see you next week, okay? Cheers.